An article of impeachment will be delivered to the US Senate later today, charging former President Donald Trump with inciting insurrection. The move will trigger the start of the process, which will see him stand trial starting on the 8th of February. President Biden has repealed Donald Trump's ban on transgender Americans joining the US military. The move fulfills a campaign promise and will be cheered by LGBTQ campaigners. President Biden is to reimpose an entry ban on non-US travellers from a number of countries, including much of Europe. It comes amid concern over new variants of COVID-19. And the Italian Prime Minister is to tender his resignation on Tuesday in the hope of being asked to try to form a new government. It comes after Giuseppe Conte lost his majority in the upper house of Parliament.
Chinese emergency workers find 9 bodies in a mine that collapsed 2 weeks ago in Shandong province. On Sunday, China pulled 11 survivors from the wreckage. 1 person died earlier, another remains missing. Iran has asked Indonesia for more information about its seizing of an Iranian oil tanker in Indonesian waters Sunday. The European Union is pressing drug maker AstraZeneca to honor its contract to ship COVID-19 vaccines to the 27-member group. And Hong Kong-based Hanson Robotics plans to produce thousands of Sophia robots by the end of 2020.
We start with the coronavirus situation here in Japan and a small bit of good news for people in the capital. For the first time since a new state of emergency was issued, Tokyo's daily COVID-19 tally dropped below 700, but officials warn there's still a long way to go. The metropolitan government reported 618 new cases on Monday, a slight drop following weeks of high numbers. The city of 14 million remains the biggest source of infection for the nation, accounting for over a quarter of Japan's total cases. Tokyo's emergency decree is set to last about 2 more weeks. The minister in charge of Japan's coronavirus response says lifting it would require careful consideration.
One criterion for lifting the declaration is for the number of new cases in Tokyo to fall below 500. But that doesn't mean the state of emergency will be lifted as soon as the figure falls below that number. Any decision will require a comprehensive assessment, including that of the hospital bed situation.
Officials are tracking the number of new cases per 100,000 people in the capital. The figure is going down, but will need to drop significantly for Tokyo to move to stage 3. The situation at hospitals is even more dire, with a troubling bed crunch showing no sign of abating. 70% of beds set aside for coronavirus patients are occupied, forcing some institutions to turn people away. And that's contributed to a grim new trend across the country. Police have released figures that show nearly 200 people who weren't being treated in hospital have died from the coronavirus since last March. Many died at home during self-quarantine, a situation that's growing more common. 75 deaths were reported in the first 3 weeks of January, up from 56 for all of December. In many cases, officials only confirmed people were infected after their death. With hospitals under increased stress, officials worry about what may come next. The latest figures show more than 35,000 carriers in Japan are caring for themselves at home. This expert has a message for them. Watch for breathing problems and seek immediate help if your lips turn blue.
If you wait and see at home, your condition could suddenly worsen. It is important to consult a medical institution at an earlier stage instead of trying to be patient.
Some local governments are stepping in to help. They're sending nurses to people's homes to check for signs of trouble and setting up hotlines where patients can get medical advice around the clock. Lawmakers in Japan have begun debating proposals to toughen up COVID-19 regulations. That includes controversial revisions allowing authorities to levy fines against rule breakers. At a heated session, the Prime Minister called on Diet members to act swiftly.
I have to do everything to make the antivirus measures more effective in curbing the spread of the virus. The government has been working on the necessary revisions to the law, taking into account individual rights, to set provisions for penalties and support.
The new laws would give greater power to prefectural governors. Businesses that don't follow requests to change their operating hours could be ordered to do so. Those that do not comply may face fines of up to about $5,000. Governors could also require infected people to stay at designated facilities. If people refuse, they could be jailed for up to a year or fined a maximum of about $10,000. Under the revised quarantine law, officials would ask people arriving in Japan to self-quarantine for 14 days. Those who refuse may be told to stay in special facilities. If they don't, they could face up to a year in prison or a maximum fine of about $10,000. Opposition lawmakers voiced concerns.
Now, many people can't be admitted to the hospital, so they stay at home without getting treatment, fearful of what could happen. Listen, many people are dying at home right now, and you want us to debate jail terms? It's outrageous.
Suga reiterated the need to strengthen the rules.
I was briefed about cases in which COVID patients leave hospital without getting clearance. The National Governors Association also proposed the implementation of penalties. Based on this situation, I would like to introduce penalties in order to make the measures more effective.
When asked about the timeline, Suga said the government aims to secure enough vaccine doses for all Japanese nationals by June this year. At one point, attention focused on Suga's own health, as his voice didn't sound like it normally does. Chief Cabinet Secretary Kato Katsunobu said Suga's ability to carry out official duties hasn't been affected and necessary tests are being conducted. Members of the main ruling and opposition parties will negotiate the proposed revisions for the next 2 days. They'll focus on 5 points concerning penalties and jail terms. The outcome of those talks will be presented to the lower house later this week. And staying with Japanese politics, lawmakers clashed when debating the future of a suspended domestic travel campaign aimed at boosting the economy. Opposition lawmakers criticized plans to continue bankrolling the Go To Travel campaign.
The supplementary budget allocates more than 1 trillion yen for the Go To campaign. That's extremely unwise. Do you really plan to use taxpayers' money to resume the campaign by the end of March? I want the government to withdraw the supplementary budget and modify it.
Suga stressed the government had set aside enough money in the budget to cover COVID-19 measures.
The supplementary budget is one that can properly deal with the coronavirus. We will pass this budget bill as soon as possible, and also using reserved funds, we are doing our utmost to prevent the spread of infection and protect the economy and people's lives.
The Go To Travel campaign was launched last July. It offered various discounts and vouchers in a bid to prop up regional economies damaged by the pandemic. The suspension over the new year due to a surge in infections was extended under the latest state of emergency. Suga refused to modify the budget and said preparations for resuming the program need to be made.
The Go Travel campaign is currently suspended, but we included it in the supplementary budget as we have to prepare to restart it at the appropriate time.
Meanwhile, a former member of the government's coronavirus task force says the travel campaign may have contributed to the spread of the virus. Researchers led by Nishiura Hiroshi looked at about 4,000 confirmed cases stemming from May to August last year. They found about 20% of them were travel-related. The patients had either taken a trip themselves or been in close contact with travelers. The study shows in the first week of the campaign, there were nearly 3 times as many travel-related cases as there were the week before it kicked off. The researchers say more data is needed to determine the extent to which economic activity can be safely opened up while controlling the spread of infection. And now we'd like to make a correction to a story that aired in Monday's Newsroom Tokyo program. We reported Prime Minister Suga aims to resume a halted domestic travel subsidy campaign within 2 months. In fact, he actually said he's preparing to resume the campaign at the appropriate time. Turning now to Europe, where people are lashing out against strict coronavirus measures put in place to stop the spread of a contagious variant strain. In some cases, that's led to violent clashes with police. In the Netherlands, people across the country took to the streets on Sunday to protest a nighttime curfew. Local media reports some rioters threw stones and firecrackers at law enforcement, while police used water cannons and tear gas to disperse and detain them. Police in London broke up a giant party Sunday where about 300 people flouted coronavirus rules. People in Britain are not allowed to go out unless absolutely necessary, and social gatherings are forbidden. An event has been held near Tokyo to promote the safety of marine products caught off Fukushima Prefecture. It came ahead of the 10th anniversary of the nuclear accident at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. The government's reconstruction agency organized the event in Yokohama. Participants watched video footage featuring flatfish caught off Iwaki City. It showed how testing of radiation levels is conducted to confirm the safety of catches. A food expert at a venue in Fukushima offered an online lesson on how to fillet flatfish and use it in 2 Italian dishes.
It's delicious. I think it's also safe because it's been tested for radiation.
The reconstruction agency plans to keep promoting the safety of fish and shellfish from Fukushima through such events. After the 2011 nuclear disaster, fishing and shellfish harvesting restarted in stages in Fukushima, with local fishers aiming to resume full-fledged operations this year. Next, a new and large kind of deep-sea fish has been found off central Japan. It's been named Yokozuna Iwashi, or Yokozuna Slickhead, in reference to the highest rank in the traditional sport of sumo. Researchers from the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology captured 4 previously unknown large fish more than 2,000 meters deep in a bay facing the Pacific Ocean. They say all 4 measured more than a meter across, with the largest over 1.3 meters long and weighing about 25 kilograms. Analysis showed the fish is the largest of the family Aleppocephalidae, or Sekitori Iwashi. Sekitori means ranking sumo wrestler. The researchers gave their new find the Yokozuna label in reference to the grand champions of sumo.
We never found fish more than 1 meter long before. There's still so much we don't know about the diversity of life.